May I have everyone's attention? Someone driving a maroon Honda SUV has left their car running. Yes, is there anyone who's driving a maroon Honda SUV? No one here with a maroon Honda SUV? That's good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good, 3 o'clock. And so once again, I welcome all of you to our Wednesday class with art and history, a bit of history. I also will tell you, because this is the 5th class, we are asking you to consider filling out your evaluation forms about the class and any comments that you would like to make. We'll also offer them next week. 1 per customer, please. We don't want you to stuff the ballot box. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I have to tell you, that little, I say little, it's only a 3-week class in stitchery. It's turning out to be phenomenal. I mean, because this was something new, and people are really, really enjoying it. So that's kind of good. I feel good that, that Oakmont Lifelong Learning is offering a variety of classes. That's just neither here nor there. We do have a class starting on the 22nd on Thursday, which is environmental ethics in climate change. So that should be a very interesting class. I also will tell you that just in case you're feeling under the weather and you're feeling a little sour, I brought a combination lemon lime for you. It's from our trees. They're just bursting. And this particular fruit is a combination lemon lime. It's an interesting flavor. The inside is kind of a light lime green. And so you could just call it my gift to you. Also, you're doing a gift to my husband because then he doesn't have to juice them all. Several years ago, like about 20, my husband had a very serious cancer, esophageal cancer. And I will tell you, for several years, maybe 2.5 years, we had a dark time. We didn't know what our future was going to be, one way or the other. I didn't want to go away because I was afraid of leaving at home, but I didn't want to hover. It was hard. It was very interesting. One day I was running errands downtown Santa Rosa. We've been in Santa Rosa since '74. I was running errands, and there was a little pop-up art gallery. And I went in. It's like the art welcomed me. And I was thinking about that with some of this art. And the reason why I even offer that to you today is because, we're living in a lot of chaos right now, and plus all this rain. And I'm just thinking, art can be a respite. So that's something I wanted to share. Oh, now we have to get back to this. The evaluations. You may also take evaluations online. So that was, is that, anything else about that one? And the last thing I wanted to tell you is that Christian is offering online a 4-week class in more art, 2 Italian art and 2 German art. And he said he has the email address for some of you, and he would contact, just give you the information. But those of you who have not signed the email list, I have a form here. I'll just send it, if that's okay, I'll just send it down, and you can either fill in your information if you want, or pass it on. Fair enough? Well, if that's the case, let us begin, and I'll send this around. Thank you, Christian. Oh yeah, please turn off your phones.
You're having a class online with
Yes.
2 Italian and 2 German. What does
Yes.
that mean?
Okay. Yeah. With 2 Italian and 2 German. I'm going to have a series of 4 lectures next month. They're on Zoom. So it's 4 Wednesday evening from 7 to 8. It's on Zoom, right? As I was saying, on Zoom, the advantage is the resolution on your computer. Images is incredible. Here they're blonde, they're made much bigger. So you'd see much better images. But I have 2 lectures on, the first 2 are early Renaissance Italy. The second one is Italian Renaissance. The third one is German art, Middle Ages. And the fourth one is Romantic German art, 19th century. And if you think German, you don't associate art and Germany, you'll be blown away. The art that came from Germany is surprising. It's incredible. So if you're interested in those lectures, let me know. It's on Zoom, and I would send you the information. Yeah? My email is my name, Christian, Quintin, so it's Quintin, there's 2 I's, christianquintin@comcast.net. Christian. When I grew up, you had no problem spelling names, right? Because in France, for example, we have a calendar and they were all saints. Every day was a different saint. And that's where your name came from. Nowadays, you cannot be sure of the spelling. People make up their own names. So it's a lot more challenging to be sure of a name. Yeah. So I do want to thank the people that have been helping me at Oakmont, and I failed to do it previously. There is obviously Charlene, who has been absolutely instrumental. There's Jane, that is hidden in the back, who is doing all the IT. There's Evelyn, the president. Where's Evelyn? Oh, there you are. Where's the lady at the front? And Peggy. Peggy, who gives me Peggy, for each lecture, she gives me chocolates. Is that nice? So anyway, I do want to thank these 4 ladies, because they do incredible work that you don't see, So it's like my girlfriend. She cooks great meals. People congratulate her on the meals she cooked, but nobody gives credit to the person that is doing the dishwashing. Nobody says, "Oh, your plates are so clean." Nobody, So these people don't get credit, but it is because of them that there is such program as we have today. All the legwork and efforts. So, Jane, can we turn off the light? Yeah. Yeah, so thank you, Charlene. Yeah. I'm waiting for these lights to go. Huh? It is an old map. I'm waiting for her to turn off these lights. Huh? Excellent. Excellent. what you're looking at is a map of France, obviously, right? I was born in Brittany. You see Bretagne here? That's where I was born. It's next to Normandy. That's where I was born, and I'm very proud of it. The next two lectures, including this one, I'm going to take you through a journey that I took in Brittany and one in the center of France. So there'll be some artwork, but there'll be many pictures I have taken to give you a little bit of a glimpse of two very separate provinces that are very, very different, you know. See, in France is a very, very old country. So there is incredible diversity because in the old days, let's say the Middle Ages, people did not travel more than 30 miles, right? So each lord, each little region had its own architecture, almost its own dialect, its own culinary, its type of food. So it's very diverse, right? So I'll start with Brittany. Brittany is Bretagne in French. It's called Breze in Gaelic language. So Brittany is a Celt country. Am I saying it right? Celt. You say Celt or Celt? You say Celt, but yes, you say Celtics, right? So it's a Celtic country. So countries like Wales, Scotland, Ireland, and Brittany share the same Celt or Celt heritage, you know, in many, many ways. In Brittany, we have bagpipes. Isn't that cool? Yeah. So it's a Celtic origin, and Brittany only became independent in 1600 when the Queen of Brittany married the King of France. So let's start. So I'll show you prehistorical objects from Brittany. This is called a menhir. It's M-E-N-H-A-R. It's a tall upright stone that was erected in prehistory. So we're talking 3,000 to 4,000 years BC, before Christ. It's a megalithic sculpture, Bronze Age. It's the same type of sculpture that you see in Stonehenge, right? And it was used by the Druids for religious ceremonies. So they're commonly found in Brittany and other sites that I will show you. So this is one of them. It's just a big granite stone, and this one measures 33 feet high. And below it, it's much, much longer. This one here is a photograph I took. This is a menhir in the town of Quentin, which also is my last name. It's a town with a castle, and there was a tomb that was underneath it. So it's just a standing stone from the Middle Bronze Age. And this is just in a farmer's field. And it is quite impressive to see. And the most famous site in Brittany that is similar a little bit to Stonehenge is this one. This is Karnak. It's a megalithic site that is around 5,000 years before Christ, right? It's a stone alignment of more than 3,000 standing stones. The reason, the origin, we do not know. This is what it looks like. Isn't that cool? So we don't really know why they did that. I'm sure they had the good reasons. So I will jump to the Middle Ages, and I will tell you about Anne de Bretagne, who was the last queen of Brittany. Yeah. She was the last independent ruler of Brittany. So this is the Grand Hours of Anne de Bretagne. It's a prayer book that was commissioned by herself, Anne of Brittany. She became Queen of France to two different successive kings, and that was the end of Brittany's independence. So this prayer book was illustrated by Jean Baudichon around 1503. And what you're looking at here is Saint Martin of Tours sharing his coat. You've heard about this story. He's sharing his coat to the poor. So this prayer book has 476 pages, and it has 49 pages of illustration with illuminated borders. It had flowers on plants. So this is Saint Martin of Tours sharing his coat. I'll show you a close-up. The incredible, this is a little painting made for one book, just one book for Anne of Brittany. This is Saint Mark the Evangelist. And if you're wondering what that creature next to him is, I actually went online and I checked. The symbol that is associated with Saint Mark the Evangelist is a winged lion. So the illustrators had not seen many lions, obviously, but you know, but it's really cool. This is same book. This is Saint Catherine. So the book is a prayer book. So they celebrate a lot of famous saints. They're really teeny little painting, and each one of them is really exquisite. And they have a lot of border illumination. This is, for example, this is wheat from Turkey. And I'm going to show you another one that you all will be familiar with in Sonoma County. This is the cannabis plant, female and male. Ah, see, that's why we're so happy in Brittany. We knew, we knew, isn't that cool? So that's the male and the female plant, apparently. This illumination shows you the marriage of Anne de Bretagne with Louis the 12th of France. That's when they got married. And this illumination comes from the year 1500. Isn't it amazing to see people custom, how they view themselves? It's so long ago. It was a very different world. This one is the man she married. This is Louis the 12th of France. This is by a famous French artist called Jean Péréal. This is an oil-on panel that measures 13 by 9 inches. It's at Windsor Castle. And this one is the tomb of Anne de Bretagne and Louis the 12th in the Basilique Saint-Denis. So next lecture, I will tell you a little bit about that church. In that church are buried 43 French kings and 48 French princesses. So it's quite something to see. So this is a detail of the tomb of Anne of Brittany and the King Louis XII. So Anne of Brittany is a very important figure in Brittany, and she's quite revered. And this is a funerary monument. So I was born, let me see, I was born in the, let me go back to that map. Up. I was born in the northern part of Brittany facing England. Anybody's gone to Brittany here? Did you like it? Yeah? Yeah. Up. There we go. This is the city of Dinan in Brittany. So it's maybe 30 miles from where I grew up. It's a walled medieval town that is built on a hillside above the Rance River. And it leads to the town of Saint-Malo in Brittany. So I'll show you a few photographs I took of the city. It's very pretty and very quaint. Most of the houses are built in granite because granite is what we have. Isn't that a pretty port? And this is an old medieval bridge. Anybody's gone to Dinan before? You have? Yeah, you have, Shannon? Really? Yeah, it is a walled medieval city. This is the bell tower, which is also a watchtower. It's from the 10th century, and it's quite remarkable. I went up this tower, and I went up a very rickety ladder up to the top, and I took some photograph of the city of Dinan. This is what you see from outside. Does that make you want to go to France? So from the top of that tower, you have just absolutely incredible views. And the views are going to be of the roofs of the town. Look at these roofs. This is all made of slate. So the buildings are made of granite, and the roofs are made of slate, pure slate. And I took this picture. Look at these roofs. Isn't that cool? And then we have a lot of, in Dinan, they have a lot of medieval houses. So these are called half timber houses. Half timbered houses is called like that because the structural and the load bearing timbers are left exposed, partly exposed, right? So the foundation you can see. So this is one of them. These are medieval houses and they are in perfect condition. This is the base in one of them. It's quite cool to visit all houses like that. And I have this one. So I'll show you some detail of these half-timbered houses. Look at this lock. See that? Isn't that amazing? I show you some details of windows in these houses. Because in the Middle Ages, people were afraid. You know, there was a lot of bad people on the road. It was the 100 Years' War. People lived in fear, so they defended themselves as best as they could. I took this picture of a pigeon. Doesn't he look happy? Yeah. This is a statue of Bernard du Guesclin. Bernard du Guesclin. He's very famous in France. He was a Breton knight, and he became the French military commander of all the French forces. He fought on the French side against the English during the 100 Years' War. Brittany was fought by the English and the French. Everybody wanted a part of Brittany. So this is the statue of Bernard du Guesclin in Dinan. And this here is an illumination from 1455, and it shows Bertrand du Guesclin being named Constable of France by the French kings. And this is from the Great Chronicles of France. And this is his death. This is illumination that tells you about his death during the siege of a castle in 1380. It's a different world, huh? You've heard of the Bayeux tapestry? Somebody asked me why. The Bayeux tapestry, first of all, is an embroidered cloth that depicts the Norman conquest of England by William the Conqueror. Right? You guys familiar with that? So, you're familiar with that? So the reason I did not tell you about William the Conqueror, because it belongs to a different lecture, which is mostly the British Isles, right? But in this tapestry here, you can see the men of the city of Dinan fighting the Normans. So this tapestry is incredible. It measures 230 feet long. So it's an embroidered cloth, and it has many images, and it shows here you can see the men of Dinan fighting the knights of William the Conqueror in 1066. This is the church of Dinan, the Basilique Saint-Sauveur, 15th century. You can see we have a lot of clouds in Brittany. We get a lot of rain. So it's not touristic like the French Riviera. So it's more pristine, you know. It has less visitors and it is quite beautiful. In that church, you find what's called a gisant. A gisant is a sculpture and a life-size representation of a person that is diseased in repose. And they are pretty amazing. So the one that you see is a gisant of Jean de Beaumanoir. He was a knight, and he was a friend of Bernard du Guesclin, the man we just spoke about. And I took this picture of another gisant. This is from the Middle Age. Isn't that cool to see how this warrior is depicted with his sword? those were the days. In that church, this is a picture of a statue of Saint George and the dragon. It's a famous tale where they had a dragon in a village. He kept extorting the villagers. And then at one point, he wanted a princess. But the princess and her knight fought back and they killed the dragon. And this is a statue of Joan of Arc. You see them often in churches in France. This is a statue that dates from the 15th century. And this one is just it's just a wooden sculpture of a monk. In the church, yeah. So this is the port of Dinan on the Rance River. This is a painting of the, you can see what you're seeing. This is a painting from 1835 of the same view, roughly. It's the port of Dinan by an artist called Isidore Dagnan. It's at the Dinan Museum of Art. So if you go inland on the Rance River, you get to a little town called Léon. If you go toward the ocean, you go to Saint-Malo. So going to inland, you find this little village. You know, I'm not giving you a comprehensive view of Brittany. I'm doing like if you were traveling, you see a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You just get a glimpse of life in Brittany. So this is this little village. It has maybe a few hundred inhabitants, and it's a series of locks, and it has a monastery. Doesn't it look like the little type of villages you want to visit? See, every house in France when I grew up had shutters, but they're not like for show shutters. Like here you find some shutters, but they have no, they're just decorative, you know. But people, the shutters are almost impossible to open from the outside. So most houses had shutters in France. And this is the monastery of the town of Léon. So I showed you the bridge, I showed you the monastery. So this is a painting. You see the same monastery and the same bridge at the bottom? You see it? This is a painting by a British painter called Thomas Seddon. It's painted in 1853. It's an oil and canvas of this little town. So he was a landscape painter, British landscape painter born in 1821. So if you take the boat, but instead of going inland, you go towards Saint-Malo. So we took a little boat and we went toward the ocean. And we're following the Rance River. So it takes many hours to get there. It's slow. These are old fishermen shacks. They're built on, how do you call those things? Huh? Still, yeah. Would that be a cool place to fish if you fished? You'd have to get there first. So when you're on a boat, you get to the city of Saint-Malo. Saint-Malo was founded by the Gauls. The Gauls were the people that inhabited France in its earlier days. It's a walled city. It has a long history of sailing, piracy, and overseas adventures. It also has the highest tide in Europe at 45 feet. So I was born, maybe like 30 miles from that. Where I was born, you have the ocean that is there. 2 hours later, the ocean is 4 or 5 miles away. It's incredible. So you have this long expanse of sand. So there's a lot of seafood, incredible seafood. When here you almost have no tide. So this is an aerial view of the city of Saint-Malo. And when there are storms, the waves are just washing the building. It's quite spectacular. And in the town of Saint-Malo, every 4 years, there is the it's called the route of the rum. It's a transatlantic race that goes from Saint-Malo to the West Indies. It's a very famous single yacht race. So it takes a lot of courage to be on this little boat and crossing the Atlantic. This is a map that I found. This is Saint-Malo in the 12th century. It's nice to see the artist interpretation and the people that are standing there. A famous mariner that grew up in Saint-Malo is this man. His name is Jacques Cartier. He's a very famous explorer. He was born in 1491 in the town of Saint-Malo, and he discovered the Gulf of St. Lawrence, and he discovered Canada. Canada comes from the Iroquois word for settlement. So imagine you had these people on teeny boat gone for months in heavy seas, and he discovered Canada. This is an old map that I found. It's a Spanish chart of the St. Lawrence River, and it's made in 1541. And it's hard for you to see, but I was able to read. It contains a legend that says, here many French died of hunger, and they're alluding to Cartier's settlement there in 1535. I was born in the town of Saint-Brieuc, and this is the church of Saint-Brieuc. It's a cathedral. You see how it looks like a fortress, right? Because in good time it was a church, but if you had invaders, all the villagers would go inside the church, and it became a fort that could be defended. So just so you understand that the English Channel that you guys call the English Channel, we don't call it the English Channel. We call it the sleeve, because it's not English, right? So, and this is another gisant, which is a funerary sculpture, and I think this is a bishop. These are really trippy to see how somebody that died is shown as a sculpture. They're quite moving. And this is a picture of a medieval house in Saint-Brieuc. We have quite a downtown that has a lot of very old houses. I went to school in a little town, maybe 20 miles west of that. The little town is called Saint-Quay-Portrieux, and I went to boarding school for 4 years in a Jesuit college. So it's a small town, and it has a port. So this is a close-up of the how do you call that thing? The lighthouse. So this is what it looks like. So I told you there's extremely high tide. So in between high tide, the boat's on the sand. And when it comes to high tide, the water comes and boom. It's quite magical, and that's twice a day. Isn't that cool? So you get a lot of seafood, a lot of small fishermen. A magical place that I really want to share with you is the Countess Island. And the Countess Island has a lot of significance for me because I went to school in boarding school, and often I was the only one left on weekends. So as a child, I used to explore this island on my own. You can only access it at low tide. It belongs to the Counts of Goëlo as early as the 5th century, and now the name comes from a countess that had built a castle there. Is that magical? So I was, maybe 11 to 14 years old. That was my hunting ground. This is the Île de la Comtesse. Here it says, Island of the Countess, do not be surprised by the tide. It is dangerous if you don't know. And this is the island. Wouldn't you like to have played there as a child? And I took these 2 pictures of unusual houses in Saint-Quay-Portrieux. A little house with a Virgin insert. And this one. Isn't that a weird building? So we have a lot of seafood, incredible seafood in Brittany. You have nothing like that here. This is the type of seafood we get. Big crabs. These are called spider crabs. And you can go on the beach and collect all kind of shells. The next two pictures are just images of the coast of Brittany. This is granite, all granite. It's very wild. It's very beautiful. See that? Could be. This is a painting of Brittany by an artist born in Brittany. His name was Maxime Moffra. This is the entry of the port of Palais. So this is painted in 1880, and you could definitely say this is Impressionist style. Isn't that pretty? This rendition of the ocean. This one is a very famous British artist. His name is John Singer Sargent. Ever heard of him? Right? So this is a return from fishing. So this strikes a chord with me because as a child, my mom and I and my sisters, we'd go with buckets and we'd pick up cockles and crabs, but not just a few for show. We'd pick up buckets and that'd be the meal of the day. You know, you pick up mussels, you pick up crabs, and that's what you did. So this painting is 30 by 48. It's at the National Gallery of Art in London. Here's another painting. This one I found quite incredible. The artist is Charles Cotet. He's a painter from Brittany. He was born in 1863. It's an oil on paper mounted on a wood panel. Isn't the water gorgeous? And I have this painting of his. This is called the country of the sea. So those mariners, those small fishermen, they sport all around the coast of Brittany. It was a way of life. You had those small fishermen that were gone for months, sometime more, and many did not come back. And you had women waiting, you had family waiting, and often they did not make it back. So all along the coast of Brittany, you see little teeny island with crosses on them, and it shows what boat had floundered or things like that. It's part of the Brittany lore. So this is obviously a fisherman that has died and his family mourning. And this is by the same artist. This is called Grief. It's about a widow that has lost her husband. It measures 28 by 36. And before we take a break, we're going to take a teeny break. This is a painting by Oskar Klineth. He's a Finnish painter from Helsinki. And I found the water is absolutely, it looks easy to do water like that. It isn't. It's extremely complicated. Yeah. So we're going to take a little break. Yeah. And if you want to talk to me or have questions, I'd be glad to talk to you during the intermission. Thank you.
I was reading a book in middle history, I was long ago. Commission some of the we pay the house meeting salary. Because you got them on news and the things you got. Work for the senior one.
So, so Christian, as we start the second half, what I would like to say is it's been fun to look at the photographs as taken by an artist. I love the way your angles are showing, and I can appreciate an artist's touch in these photographs.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, you know, I'm an artist. That's what I do for a living. And I've always loved history. So I combine the two. So I like doing this research. The research involved in any lecture, you're talking 100 of hours. So I see a lot of terrible artwork, but once in a while I found one and I get excited. Then I look for and I find another one. It's like looking for crystals or something like that. So where were we? We were somewhere, yeah, I know where we were. Bup, bup, bup. Guess what this is? You all said it at the same time. It is Le Mont Saint-Michel. It's an island, a little teeny island on the coast of Brittany. You can only reach it at low tide, so it's fairly dangerous because it has a lot of moving sand. It's considered Brittany, but it's at the edge of Normandy, But people from Brittany know it's Brittany. So it is famous for its monastery. It's protected by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site. So I'll show you a few pictures because it is an amazing place. I showed you the best pictures I could take or that I found. Whoop. Huh? Cloisters. Yeah, I'll show you pictures of the cloisters. There's a lot of sheep around it. Look at that. That's what it looks like at a high tide, although that little sand tongue gets covered by water. Isn't that an amazing place?
At night it's lit up. It's beautiful.
It is absolutely, it's very unique. I was there 6 months ago. You see the tides? So it's very dangerous because the water doesn't come straight back. It does these loops and people get caught in these loops. This is the monastery itself. And this picture is the cloisters you were talking about. Am I correct? Yeah, so it's a covered garden, basically, that was made for the monk, and it has 137 different columns. It's very, very pretty and very peaceful.
Walk up there too.
It is a long walk. And I'll tell you one thing about traveling. If you like to take pictures, the hardest thing is to not have people in your pictures, So I often travel in winter, or sometimes it just takes a lot of work to take a picture where there's no one, and that's hard. You'll have Chinese group, Japanese group, huge groups of people. It's almost impossible to not have them in the frame, so it takes work. This is a painting of the Mont Saint-Michel by an artist called James Welf. He was a British artist. It's painted in 1857, and it's at the Tate Gallery in London. It measures 9 feet wide, and you can see it's part of the Romantic tradition. So really, look at the sky. The sky is absolutely incredible. What did you say? Yes, that was like, I know. I love those skies. So we were talking about I showed you the Bayeux tapestry. And I told you that it was 230 feet, and it was made to celebrate William the Conqueror of Normandy invasion of England. So in this tapestry, it's showing Harold, the King of England, who is fighting against William the Conqueror. He's showing Harold rescuing his knights from the moving sand. Isn't that cool? So I'll take you now to a castle. Everybody likes castles, right? And when you go to France, every 5 miles there's an old church. Every 5 miles there's a castle. It's just endless, So it's you don't want to stay in big cities. You just want to get lost in provincial towns or little roads. So this is the town of Fougères in Brittany, and this is Fougères Castle. It's a large medieval castle. It has 3 different enclosures and a moat, and it has 13 different towers. So this castle was built in the 10th century. It's on the Fougères is in Brittany at the edge of Normandy. It's still Brittany. Actually, this castle was taken by Henry II of England in 1166, but then he lost it. It's back to us. So I'll show you two pictures of the castle. I have this one. Is that a forbidding castle? Next to it is this amazing little church. Look at the Gothic style of this church. Isn't that elegant? And in this church was built in, let me see, I did write it down somewhere. It started being built in the 6th century, and then there were, further construction. But look how peaceful this little garden around the church is. And you see those things to the left, those things standing against the wall? The tombstones. The tombstones, they went upright. Somebody had the idea of taking these old tombstones and making them and standing them upright against a wall. And if you look carefully, you have Merovingian, you have writing of the 6th, 5th, 7th century. So it's quite awesome to see. It's not something you will encounter. That's the thing about going to old countries. It's quite mesmerizing to feel a sense of history. And I'll show you a few medieval houses of the town of Fougères because they're quite remarkable. This is still the church, sorry. This is a stained glass in the church. They're absolutely amazing to watch. And this is a medieval house. This is a creperie because Brittany is the country where you buy crepes. You've heard of crepes? Yeah, so we have two types of crepes. We have crepes, they're more like dessert, and we have galettes, which are made with black wheat, and those you eat with sausage or eggs or... You guys hungry? Huh? So this is a medieval creperie. This is an abandoned medieval house. And you can see the half timber are exposed. Look at these houses. I can't tell you they're very comfortable to live in because these people were much shorter than we are. People were way, way shorter than we are now. So the ceilings are very low. The windows don't give much light because they had to keep the place warm. So they're not necessarily the most comfortable, but they're certainly the most intriguing and beautiful. Look at this house. This gentleman is called Armand Ruffin. He was a Marquis of de la Houerie. So he was a noble. The thing about him is I just stumbled upon his statue. I did not know of him. His name is Charles Armand Ruffin. He was Marquis de la Houerie. He was born in 1751. He was a cavalry officer from Brittany, and he served under General Washington during the American War of Independence. So you just walk in the street and you see this statue. He was promoted to brigadier general after the Battle of Yorktown. You guys have heard of Yorktown, right? And he remained friend with General Washington and General Lafayette his entire life. Without him, you guys be drinking Lipton tea. It's true. So here it says, here was born on 13th of April, 1751, Armand Ruffin, blah, blah, blah. And he was American War of Independence, friend of Washington. I'll take you to a very pretty castle. One of the best castles I've ever seen because it's small, but it's absolutely incredible. This is the Chateau de Combourg. It was built in 1025, and it was the home of a famous writer, French writer, romantic writer called René de Chateaubriand. He was a very famous writer. He wrote his autobiography and memories. His books are written from beyond the graves. And that's the castle he grew up in. So I took a few pictures of the castle. Look at this. Isn't that pretty? It's in absolute perfect condition. I was able to steal this image inside where you're not supposed to take photograph. And this is the staircase. Doesn't that look magical? Yeah? This is him. This is René de Chateaubriand. He's a very famous French writer. This is painted by a woman called Anne-Louise Giraudet de Roussy-Triosson. The more noble you were, the longer the name. It's an oil and canvas, and it is at the Saint-Malo Museum. And the woman I just mentioned, the artist, was quite famous. She painted many members of the family of Napoleon. So now I'll show you a few paintings. I just wanted to show you a few glimpses of Brittany. This is a painting. It looks very much like the area I grew up. This is the coast of Saint-Quay-Portrieux. That's where you saw the Countess Island. This is painted in 1874 by an artist called Eugène Louis Boudin. He was one of the first French painters to paint outdoors. He's a British painter, English painter. His name is Hugh Bolton-Jones. Is that beautiful? A landscape? This is called Brittany. It's painted in 1877. It measures 16 inches by 22. Actually, I stand corrected. He's actually American, born in 1848. I thought he was British, but he's known for painting rural scenes. And I have another painting of his, this one. It's called In the Moors of Brittany. And you see the Brittany woman with those hats? He's a painter we saw in the last lecture on Impressionism. At the end, his name is Edouard Vuillard. He's one of the artists I showed you last week. This is Windmill at Saint-Jacques, a little town in Brittany. And the painting measures 42 inches wide. It isn't it? Yeah. This is what you find everywhere in Brittany. They call cavalry. A cavalry is, do you know what a cavalry is? It's the place where Jesus was crucified, if you believe in the Bible or whatever. So everywhere little churches have a cavalry with a cross. It's kind of dark and somber, not the happier places, but they're everywhere. So Brittany was very Catholic. You know, I was raised as a Catholic. I mean, I got over it quickly, but, you know, I went to communion. That's just the way it was. You know, when 100% of people were Catholic, that's how it was. Then I moved to San Francisco. I moved from Paris to the Haight-Ashbury, and they had a church of Jimi Hendrix. I was like, this is cool. Something different. You know, but it's a very Catholic country, and actually people from Brittany fought in great part against the French Revolution, you know, because the French Revolution promoted atheism. So this is painting of woman at a pardon, at a forgiving. That's a woman, that's the typical headdress for women, and those round hat for men. That's what you saw. This is an artist called Émile Bernard. This is a view of a little town in northern Brittany called Molosne. And all these pictures I show you, if you've been to Brittany, they feel like Brittany. So this is an oil painting on a wood panel that measures 39 inches wide. Here's another artist I showed you as an impressionist in the last lecture. This is Émile Bernard. These are Breton women in the meadow. Émile Bernard was a French post-impressionist painter, and he was a friend with Cézanne, Van Gogh, and Gauguin. Imagine that. I can't say that about my friends. They're nice, but they're not famous, that's for sure. Maybe. So I have two more paintings of his. These are Breton peasants in a field. It's painted in 1892. And that's how people were dressed. So when I grew up, the elders, maybe my grandfather, a lot of them spoke only Breton. They did not speak French. They spoke this Celt language. They were dead before I met them, but all photographed, yeah. I don't know about the hat, but they wore traditional clothes from Brittany. And this is a painting, it's called The Goose Keeper, by the same artist, Émile Bernard. A very different artist. This is called The Legend of Brittany. It's by a French artist called Edgar Maxence. He was a French symbolist painter born in 1871. But the hat she's wearing, that woman in black, is very typical of the hat they were in Brittany. How do you call that type of hat? Dentelle. How do you call that type of fabric? That's very, very fine. Lace, yeah. My mother used to do lace. She'd do bedspread, you know, and it's something that would take 2 years. Crochet, yeah, thanks, crochet. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Another artist that you saw last week with the Impressionists, his name is William Bouguereau. The title of this piece is called Return, Brother and Sister. It's at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. He's an American painter. His name is Charles Sprague, and it shows a village funeral in Brittany. And it really feels like a photograph. You can feel the mood. There's no, there's no pretentiousness. There's nobody standing in the middle. It just looks like a casual gathering of people that meet during a funeral. It looks real, doesn't it? Very different artist. I don't know what to say about this painting. It feels Japanese. It's an artist born in Brittany in 1868. His name is Georges Lacombe. It's a boatwoman in Brittany. So at the end of the lecture, if you did not catch the name, you're welcome to ask me. It would be difficult. It has been suggested to me that I could put the name of the artist and the title, but then if I did that, I'd have nothing to say, right? But the reason I don't do that is because I would have to transfer it to PowerPoint, and the images would lose a lot of resolution. This is called Farewell. The artist is a painter born in Brittany, born in 1844. His name was Alfred Guillou, and this is Farewell. And it measures 96 inches wide, it's almost 8 feet. Isn't it curious for an artist to choose such a somber painting where you're going to work on something like that for months? It's powerful, isn't it? And this is a painting by Gustave Carrier of a little church in the town called Guingamp. And these are the type of churches you're going to see everywhere in Brittany. That same rural and Gothic type of church. So one of the artists, and I told you that last week, is Paul Gauguin. Gauguin spent the early part of his life painting Brittany before he moved to Tahiti. So I'm going to show you a few paintings by Gauguin. This is a Brittany landscape. It's called Pont Aven. Pont Aven in Brittany was an artist colony where a lot of famous painters met and painted in plein air. So from very early in his life, Gauguin was attractive to the what was then even more remote and the unspoiled terrain of Brittany, and he was interested in the pagan and Celtic cultures. It appeared to his taste. This is Vision after the sermon. Again, Brittany was very Catholic, deeply ingrained in people was the idea of Catholicism. So this is called the Vision after the sermon. It's at the Scottish National Gallery, and in it you see Jacob wrestling with the angel, if you're familiar with the Bible. This is what women look like. I would say my grandmother would probably look like one of those women going to the market in the town of Dole in Brittany. That's how people dressed. They're what? That's a photograph. Yeah. It's an old photograph. It's early in the century. This is a farm in Brittany by Gauguin. It's at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's painted in 1894. So you can see how the tones of his painting in Brittany are quite muted. When you go to Tahiti, his palette became very, very brilliant. This is the swineherd, the pig herder. It's an oil and canvas that measures 37 inches. And again, this is by Paul Gauguin. It's really cool that he was interested in simple life, the peasants and the farms. And this one is Winter at Pont Aven. It's at the National Museum of Western Art in Tokyo. Any of those paintings by Gauguin are worth a fortune. And I found this painting a few days ago, actually. I don't know why, but I really love it. And the artist was born maybe 10 miles from where I was born. His name was Paul Sébillot. And actually, this painter was born in 1843. But his son, the son of this painter, toured the United States in 1949. And he toured the United States in a train. He had gifts from France because they were grateful for the American aid in the wake of World War II. So the thing about French people, can I bring that up? The thing about French people not liking Americans, it's just like me saying Americans eat hamburgers. It's silly. It's not true. When I grew up, we had Mormons coming to our doors. Imagine that. Even in Brittany, we did. Anyway, if you had somebody from when you go to capitals, no, it's like if you're French and you go to Fisherman's Wharf and you expect a warm welcome. It's just a tourist trap, right? But if you're going to the province, people are like, oh, you're from the US, they're excited, so don't believe in these French people don't like, some of them don't, but that is not the majority by far. People are curious. So two paintings from Brittany. This is Pierre Renoir. This is a painting by Renoir. We also saw an Impressionist. This is called In Brittany. It measures 26 inches by 21 inches. A very different palette. And he also did this painting of two women in Brittany. That is quite typical of Renoir's style. And because good things come to an end, I'm going to show you 1, 2, 3. I'm going to show you 3 more paintings. The painting is by Paul Signac. Paul Signac is a pointillist artist, and I showed you his work in the previous lecture as an impressionist. So I'm going to show you 3 remarkable paintings he did of the ports of Brittany and the sea. This is called Adagio. This is very, very difficult to do. You're talking about months on one painting. It looks simple, right? But yet, what the paintings convey is the quality of the light. you know? Isn't that beautiful? And he did this painting. See, it's a town called Concarneau in Brittany. It's called Evening Calm. It's painted in 1891. And the last painting I will show you is this one. This is called Regatta in Concarneau by Paul Signac. It's quite unique, isn't it? How many did he take him to? I have no idea. I can only tell you that if I were to do this, it would be a matter of months. You know? So you would put a layer, let the oil painting dry, put another layer. There'd be a lot of successive layers. So it takes many, many, many weeks. And remarkable patience when you do pointillism. You know, this is a very, very slow process. So that does it for this lecture. Thank you. Thank you. The next lecture, and I beg you to not miss that one, because the next one is a trip I took in the heart of France. And that one, I think, is really incredible. That one you'll really, really enjoy, because I will go through areas of France that I rarely visited. So, thank you for attending. I would be glad to hear what you have to say. Do you guys have questions? Do you have something you'd like to share?
I'm curious about all the churches and the castles and how they manage to support themselves. Are they slowly selling off the furnishings, or where do all the funds come from to keep them going?
Well, it depends, you know, it changes a lot of this. It depends whether the castle belong to the French government or if they're just privately owned. So if it's privately owned, it depends who bought the castle, you know. Some of them are really well kept, but you'll find that the most exciting one are the ones that are not. The ones that are pristine, that are almost in ruin, you know, they're untouched, they're unspoiled. The ones that are more famous have a lot of tourists, and they tend to, you don't want to see tourists in a beautiful castle, right? So it really varies, but countries like France, which is probably the most visited country in the world, spend a lot of money on buildings, you know, it attract tourists. So does that answer your question? It really, it depends on the size of the castle, it depends where it is. Some are not in a very touristic area, so they just fall in ruins. Sometimes somebody buys it and preserve it, but it takes, imagine when you have to do the roof of a castle, you're talking immediately millions of dollars, you know, so yeah. Yeah. Do you have a question? So I want to ask you, how did this make you feel? This is Brittany, right? I just showed you a little glimpse of the province I was born. What did that make you feel? Not what I say, but the pictures or...
Makes me want to go there.
It makes you want to go there and eat crepes, huh?
The buckwheat
Huh?
crepes.
Camembert trees.
I want to go.
Yeah. What did that make you feel, Charlene, to see this painting? Did
Well,
you see this Brittany lecture?
Yeah. I remember enjoying the buckwheat crepes.
Oh, you like that?
Yeah. We had a good time when we were there. The whole thing, the history,
Yeah.
the breezes, if I recall, the breezes they felt fresh.
The ocean?
No, the air.
Yeah. Where I'm from, you can smell the salt in the air. You can see seagulls. It's a country of the ocean, you know. You have small farms inland and you have small fishermen, not like big fishers, but small fishermen that risk their life every day. Yeah.
Oh.
What's that?
Was there something on Zoom?
Return from fishing. Return from fishing.
Could you show return from fishing once again and rename the artist?
Oh, good question. Return from fishing. Where was that? Huh? It could be one of this one? Huh?
Is that the one you were looking for?
It's not that one? Because this is the return from fishing.
And that was Sargent, right?
Huh?
That was Singer Sargent.
Correct. But that's return from fishing. Is that the one you
Yes,
meant?
he's saying yes.
Yeah.
He'd like you to rename the artist. Did you say it was?
This is John Singer Sargent. I mean, I'd have to look through my notes, but the artist is English, isn't it?
He's American.
Did I say that? Then he's American, and his name is John Singer Sargent. The other English guy. Yeah. John Singer Sargent. That's a beautiful painting, and actually his work is incredible because I did a few lectures on the British Isles. But the painting I just showed you today, they're not necessarily extraordinary painting, but they are painting of Brittany, of where I come from. So Brittany is less visited, it's less touristic, but it's worth going there. Yeah. Anybody else would like to share something? You're welcome. Go ahead.
I just wanted to know if your family had lived in Brittany for many generations.
That's a really good question. It's true. My family, I think I can go at least 500 years and people come from the same area. Because people a long time ago, people did not move. People went to the big town that could be 20 miles away and they'd go there twice a year. That's it. People did not travel very much. It's not like nowadays where you grew up somewhere, but now you live in Atlanta or in New York. I think my family was from the same area for a long, long, long time. Yeah. Huh? My heart is still there. But during the French Revolution, a lot of the records were destroyed. One of the things that the revolutionary did is they destroyed not only castle, but it was in castle and in church that records were kept. So before the French Revolution, it gets a lot more difficult to find records of ancestry. But the reality is we all met, So people
What brought you to the United States?
What brought life did. I took the wrong bus. No, I was living in Paris. I was a Friday. I remember I was depressed. It was raining. And I had been married to an American woman I met in London. But then I broke up with her. I was living in Paris and I bought a one-way ticket to San Francisco. One way. And I had one suitcase and that was it. And I came to the Haight-Ashbury, where people hug you after 5 minutes and tell you they love you. Like, cool. Really? If you live in Paris, it's very hard to know people. People shake your hand. It's a long process. It was 1981, but you go to the Haight-Ashbury, it's like, it was incredible, and people were incredibly welcoming. They were. In France, I don't think you would get the same amount of people. I'm very grateful to American, and I love the United States for that very reason. So sometimes I'm around French people and they criticize the US, hamburger or whatever. But I make the effort to correct them. They don't know anything about. The US is a great place. It just depends who your friends are, isn't it? So, yeah. Huh? Yeah, sadly. Yeah, do we have Disney World? I know. Yeah.
Here you go.
That lighthouse,
This one?
I don't know if that's the
No, the
same
one
one that
that-
shows up in maybe a dozen or more of the paintings. So is this just the latest iteration of that same lighthouse we're seeing over the centuries?
No, he was asking about the one in the Return of the Fisherman.
Yes, and I'm wondering if this is the same, if we're seeing the same thing over and over from all. these
No,
different-
no, they're just
there's
different
lots of
lighthouses.
Okay.
Because you have to realize that before, that's all people had. The only way to know that there was rocks and sea was lighthouse.
Yeah, like
So they
back
were
east.
very well maintained. And actually, did you guys ever see the movie Clockwork Orange? There's a song in it. It says, it's a song called I Want to Marry a Lighthouse Keeper. Ever heard that song? Imagine what a solitary life it is to live in a lighthouse. Now, you have helicopters and things like that. But in the 19th century, people were alone for 6 months. So you could easily drive somebody crazy, So, yeah. Anybody else, would you like to share something?
I think we got the email list of those who signed it. If you didn't, Peggy has it in the back.
Yeah. So again, I'm going to give 4 lectures on Italian and Renaissance art and 2 on German art. The world is a beautiful place, and it takes people like you to. My lecture is due to you. There are other people than me that are interested in art and history. So thank you. Thank you very much. Whoop.